Good morning, my friends. Welcome, or good afternoon, depending on where you are, or even good evening for those of you in Europe and UK. Welcome. Today's date is the 27th of December here in New Zealand. I know most of you are a day behind, but that's okay. I'm from the future. This is what it looks like in the future. It's a beautiful day here today. Blue sky here on the carpety coast of New Zealand. Heading towards the end of 2023, which most people will be happy to see the back of, and we're also heading towards full moon exact in about 4 hours or so, 4.5 hours till the full moon is exact, the last full moon of the year. I'm going to do a call then too. That should be, if you go to the Bright Light Beings Facebook group, you will see the notification and the link to join there in the feed, because I just posted it last night. So welcome. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to those of you who celebrate something this time of year, which is most people to some degree. Even if you're just getting a break from work on these days off, enjoy them. So I'm just back yesterday from the South Island. We went down there. The whole family was there, my two boys as well as Marie, to be with Marie's mum for Christmas and her partner. That was reasonably successful. Lucas and I skived off for 4 days earlier in the week and did a tramp through the Nelson Lakes, which was also very good. It's very pleasant. Well, it was difficult, as they always are when you go on a 4-day hike in the mountains, and it is quite mountainous down there, but it was very, very therapeutic as well, and transformational in many ways, and awesome to spend time with my nearly 22-year-old one-on-one for basically 4 days straight. Something that we don't often get to do with our young adult children as they find their way in the world and they don't want that much to do with their parents. Hey, Sister Debbie Love. Anyway, I have an awesome question / discussion starter from Sister Jen Burns, and I will do my best to read it as it's written here. Hey, Sister Jen is here too, so this is very good timing. Okay, here we go. I recently had a discussion with someone about how traditionally it has been challenging for humans to evolve or change in a rapid pace. And we've got to remember that rapid is, of course, a very relative term. They pointed to biology / science about how we are designed to repeat patterns and stay in our habits of what we know. So for many people, to break those patterns requires a lot of something, a lot of effort and a lot of energy generally. While a part of me agrees, especially when it comes to attachment trauma, or talk about taking time to heal, I also sense that we are evolving as a species to grow and evolve at a much faster pace than previously possible. There's something here for me around the bridge between heaven and earth, current reality, and also stepping into possibilities. I agree. But anyway, I'm going to keep reading and then I'm going to loop back around. I think people can change at a moment's notice, and there are also limitations that our current physical body-mind reality has. I find myself dancing where to place my attention. Imagining a world where instant massive transformation is normal and coming back to the present moment that is here now. Would love to hear your thoughts about change, reality, and possibilities in short. In short, how do we hold an optimistic view of what's possible and not yet experienced, and also be delusional? Sorry, I just hovered my mouse in the wrong spot, and be, because I actually moved my mouse word to word, which is, I know, terribly reductive, but that's how it has to be. And delusional and in denial of the current reality, and not be delusional and in denial of current reality. So yes, this is awesome. And I agree. Hey, Sister Tracy, I agree. Instant change is absolutely possible. And it doesn't have to be a miracle, although it feels like a miracle when it happens. We are exactly a manifestation of an energetic being having a physical experience. This physical experience itself is just a collective of vibrations, right? Everything is possible for us to magically change this reality in all sorts of awesome ways and in all sorts of interesting ways, which might not come across as awesome. Instant manifestation is absolutely possible from the reality of physics and spirituality, right? It is absolutely, quantum physics now is showing that we can absolutely change the form of anything with enough conscious intent. However, as you pointed out, we do have limitations. They're not firm limitations. They're not like a law that we can't do something. They are our habits. Because we haven't seen much instant manifestation, because we haven't experienced it much ourselves practically, we tend to have trouble believing that it's possible. Believe it or not, our beliefs shape our reality. Believe it or not, our beliefs shape our reality. So what we believe is what we tend to see. What we expect to see, and we've done lots of experiments on this in quantum physics as well, what we expect to see is generally what we see. So if we're expecting things to take time, hey, cousin Mark, if we're expecting things to take time, then they tend to take time. We've been habituated to believing this physical reality has a momentum to it, and thus we have kept seeing the momentum to this physical reality that further reinforces our beliefs. So it seems like reality is verifying, justifying what we believe. We seem to see proof that what we believe is true, but what we are seeing is our own expectations based on our beliefs being mirrored back to us. So we're living in this world that is constantly reinforcing what we already believe. Social media is an interesting example of this, and how people have fed information from an algorithm that keeps backing up their current viewpoints. Right? You very rarely see things on social media that challenges your existing reality, because the algorithm knows you don't like that, and it's in the business of giving you what you like. Interestingly, social media is a reasonably accurate representation of the universe. The universe is doing the same thing. Not some sort of intelligence that's looking at you like an AI, but basically just energy mechanics. The mechanism by which you live is always reinforcing your current beliefs. Thus, we're in this loop that is reinforcing the idea that change takes time. Some people believe that change is impossible in certain circumstances. Like, they accept that certain things will keep changing, progress, technology, etc., but they'll keep saying that, oh, that person will never change, which is complete, of course, bollocks. Everyone is always changing. I'm going to drink this and put it down. It's actually too hot to drink, but I'm also thirsty. So you know, change is the one reality that doesn't change, really. The universal constant is that things keep changing. Everything is just vibrating energy, and change is happening all of the time. Things are reordering themselves. Chaos is actually a fundamental part of the universe. It's how evolution occurs, and evolution, you know, most people can't deny that things are evolving. You're right. We just look at our technology, our cars, our computers, our phones, for example. They're freaking evolving at a massive pace. We are no different. We are evolving too. It's just hard for us to see it because we're not looking through a lens that is looking for the change. We're looking through a lens, as your friend pointed out, Jen, biologically, that really honors repeating patterns, because repeating patterns is how we stay safe. Repeating what we know works. Hey, Sister Emily Rose, good morning, good Christmas, Merry Christmas. Repeating what we know work is a very good strategy for survival, right? Trying new things is not such a good strategy for survival. It's a great strategy for evolution and for finding joy, but it's not a good strategy for survival. Better the devil you know. Well, that's an incredibly limiting saying and belief system, or operating system, really, right? This idea of just doing what you know works, even if it's uncomfortable to do that, even if it's not very efficient to do that, but it's predictable to do that, right? It's relatively predictable. Of course, things happen, odd things happen. Everything is not just, you know, completely carbon copied. The universe can't help itself but to interject and to challenge us, but our mind is much more attuned to recognizing what is the same, what is working, and keep doing that, as opposed to recognizing the new things and being curious enough to go down that rabbit hole, curious enough to try things. These are exceptional people, right, in our society who employ their curiosity in a way that is transformational, evolutionary, forward-thinking. Children do it. Little children do it. Little children are programmed to try all sorts of things and be very, very curious, but it gets educated out of them rather quickly in the way that everyone else is behaving. And we are very, very good at mimicking. Humans are incredibly good at mimicking. I was talking to someone the other day who'd watched a documentary on this, saying that this is basically how we have developed such a society that we have, how we have evolved so much, is that humans are incredibly good at copying one another. We see someone doing something that we like and we do that. We're very, very quick to learn from others, which is a good skill, but it can also be a limitation if we're not willing to go beyond that, right? So it's not about mimicking is wrong. It's not about repeating habits is wrong. It's not at all. But are we stuck in that? Are we limited to that? Are we allowing this to be holding us back too much? It's always going to hold us back some, and it's always going to provide a foundation for support to some level, which is also important. So none of these things are wrong. It's just about finding a balance of how much we're copying and using repetition to support ourselves and to create a level of feeling safe. Because if we were totally out there all of the time being totally curious and new with everything we did, most of us wouldn't have a nervous system that could cope with that, right? We would feel overwhelmed by that. We would not feel secure enough to relax enough to actually make use of being curious. So both have to play out. We have to find a foundation of safety and security in ourselves. And of course, over time, that can evolve and we can have less need to mimic and repeat patterns in that because we become more confident in our ability to do new things. Confidence in a new ability only comes through, again, repetition, right? Even repeating the pattern of being curious is a pattern that gets repeated, right? So it's like we start to become habituated to being curious, which then allows us to feel more safe to be curious. This repeating patterns happens on all levels in all ways, both physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, and even spiritually. That the first time we do anything, we're going to be unsure, and that unsureness tends to dilute or even railroad the outcome that we can have, right? Because when we're unsure, we're always looking for what's going wrong. And when we're looking for what's going wrong, we tend to see what's going wrong, and that then detracts from the outcome. We you could call that self-sabotage, but it's just natural behavior. Some clients get very upset if I mention self-sabotage because they think that means that they're consciously trying to ruin their lives. And they have to reaffirm that they're not consciously trying to No one's trying to ruin their lives consciously. No one. I know some people are doing patterns that you think that's incredibly, and they're stuck in their story that they're the victim, and you think that, but that's not conscious. No one is consciously trying to ruin their lives, and yet self-sabotage, perhaps isn't the best way of describing this practice of doing things over and over again that don't serve us. Even though we say we want to have a certain outcome, we can see that there's certain behaviors that are definitely preventing or extremely limiting that behavior, that outcome ever coming into manifestation. But it's very hard for people to see that because we're stuck in these habits and routines. I'm going to try and come back to your question. Hear your thoughts about change, reality, and possibilities in short. How do we hold an optimistic view? This is an interesting thing. How do we hold an optimistic view of what's possible and still be not delusional and in denial of the current reality? So I'm going to come back to this idea of current reality. There is no current reality. It's all a perspective through our own lenses. However, right, I know many of us are quote unquote scared of becoming toxically positive, which can be seen as very insensitive and can be seen as very delusional, right? As we quote unquote expect everything to happen nicely. exactly, Sister Emily Rose said, experimentation takes trial and error. Experimentation takes a real allowance of failure. That's what it takes. And failure is a big topic for us as humans. Many of us are very, very scared of failure because failures have led to our demise, right? We've lost our life through failures in the past of varying degrees. And so we're scared of that. Our little egoic self certainly does not want to die, even if our conscious mind is quite okay with the idea of death and moving on and transitioning into other realms of reality and existence. Our little human ego, of course, is clinging to its life and its existence here and its identification with the body, mind, and emotional complex. So failure is scary. And of course, we, lose status when we fail in the eyes of others, and relationships are important to us, and et cetera, right? There's a huge rabbit hole around failure. So sometimes it's better to expect things to go shit and then feel justified or clever in the idea that we predicted accurately that things were going to be shit, right? We know our life's going to be terrible, and therefore we keep creating a terrible life, and then we feel competent as a human because we've accurately predicted that our life is terrible. You can laugh at that, but time and time again we see people doing this. I myself know that I do this to myself, right? Expect things to go wrong and then feel justified in my expectations when it goes wrong. And yet in expecting it to go wrong, of course, I'm helping it to go wrong. I'm actually hoping it goes wrong so that I'm right. Humans would rather be right than happy. That's, we say this all the time. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Because predominantly humans feel safer being right than being happy. We feel safer, and safety is a big thing. How do we generate feeling safe on this planet while not being right, while not accurately predicting everything? How do we open ourselves up to magic and miracles and still feel safe, right? How do we be curious and still feel safe? Safe enough, right? No one's safe. That's the irony. Doesn't matter how careful you're being. Doesn't matter how predictable you're being. Doesn't matter if you're going down and doing exactly the same thing every day and day. And of course, you're not doing it exactly the same. But you're trying to do it exactly the same every day. You walk the same route. You get on the same bus. You eat the same food, right? Doing everything very, very predictably. And still some random act will come along and you won't be safe anymore. You'll be dead or hurt or injured or disappointed, etc. Right? Something will happen to upset the apple cart. Right, it's finished. You don't have to worry anymore. How do we hold an optimistic view of what's possible and not be delusional and in denial? We choose to, I think. At the end of the day, that's how we do anything. We hold a strong intention and we're willing to back that intention up consistently. I'm choosing to be optimistic and I'm choosing to see the reality through my eyes for what it is, right? I don't need to hide myself. I don't need to be in denial to be optimistic. I'm willing to be optimistic and still see things that challenges my optimism. This is the point, right? How many people are willing to see things that challenge their beliefs? Most people don't want to. That's why they don't go looking for it, and that's why they're blinkered to what challenges what they believe. If they want to believe the world is a happy, safe place, then they tend not to want to see things that challenge that, right? And if you want to believe that the world is a hard place, a school of hard knocks, it's always against you, because that then justifies the reason why you're living miserably, right? Which is handy, because then you feel okay about yourself. You don't feel wrong, right? A lot of people don't want to feel wrong. So they're much happier, quote unquote, much more comfortable, believing that the world is terrible and therefore they're having a terrible life, because that then lets them off the hook for feeling terrible, and they don't feel wrong about feeling terrible, right? Because, and the people who are optimistic are toxically positive and deluded and living in their own world and not with reality, right? This is the story that gets perpetuated to justify people living in misery. Why does the collective want people to live in misery? Because miserable people tend to just live a very robotic life. And that is good for the controllers of the industrialists, if you want to call them something, the industrialists of this society, because people who are miserable tend just to get up and go to work and live for their small pleasures, right? Consume things, chocolate, alcohol, etc., tobacco, other drugs, porn, whatever it is, right? They tend to consume things. They tend to go shopping to make themselves feel better, to spend this money that they're making themselves miserable to earn. And they just stay on this hamster wheel, right? In some deluded thought that this is normal, and to some degree it is statistically normal, but this is acceptable, and what is life's about, right? That this is the life, right? Life's hard and then you die. Life's a bitch and then you die. And they're content in their misery to live this life, and that's quote unquote good for the people who are basically milking society to do this work and produce things and create wealth. And give them something to control and make them feel powerful and make them feel special because they're above that thinking. Anywho's, to break out of it, how do we hold an optimistic choice? We choose to. We keep choosing to, even though it's uncomfortable. We find a willingness to be disappointed. We find a willingness to be surprised. We find a willingness to fail. We find a willingness to be uncomfortable. We start to become comfortable in the discomfort. We actually start to crave the discomfort as we move into new iterations of ourselves. We consistently choose to challenge ourselves despite the discomfort of doing that. We consistently choose to challenge ourselves despite the fact that it doesn't feel safe. We start to stretch our capacity to feel safe enough in various forms of newness. And that's a process, which again takes time. So we come back to the start. How can we just miraculously change into that? In theory, it's possible. In practice, we don't see it very often. Those of us who work as facilitators and those of us who are very conscious of our own process of evolution, we don't see miraculous jumps in consciousness, miraculous jumps in reality, right? And how we're living and what we're manifesting and what's going on in our life. We don't see that very often, or to a very big degree, very often at least. And so how do we choose to hold space for the fact that it's possible for massive change to happen instantaneously and yet not be upset when it doesn't? How do we keep holding our intention that it doesn't really matter how long it takes, but we're going there, and if it happens quickly, then great. And if it takes longer, then great. But we're going there anyway, right? I think when we let go of because another thing that happens to people is when they first come to energy healing, when people first come to energy healing, they expect it to be miraculous, right? And they're looking for that quick fix, right? And then they get very disappointed and disillusioned when it doesn't happen quickly. And then they tend to say, well, that's all a load of rubbish. They're just selling snake oil, etc., right? They throw the baby out with the bathwater because it wasn't what they expected. They expected, some miraculous energy fix. But they only expected it with a very small amount of their will, right? They hoped it was going to be. They didn't truly believe it was possible, but it seemed like the risk reward seemed fair enough, right? I pay $100, this magical person's going to take away my pain, I'm going to be fixed forever, and that's going to be great. And quite often, interestingly, the first few sessions tend to be more miraculous, and as people start to get into the long-term goal of actually improving their life, they get into what we call in spirituality the kitchen sink stage of spiritual evolution, where it's chop wood, carry water, and they start to get very disillusioned with the fact that it's taking so long. Why is this taking so long? I don't seem to be making the progress that I definitely want and was sold was going to happen. And then they get disillusioned and they start shopping around for different healers. They think this one's broken or this one's not good for their particular problem, and they start going to different people. And there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But it's what's driving it, right? And it's this hope that they're going to find someone who can miraculously take away their pain, and yet deep down they don't believe that that's possible. Nothing that they see really shows it's possible. Of course, you read some stories of miraculous healings, and that sort of gives you, in the very small minority of people where it happens, people have these miraculous healings or miraculous turnarounds in their life. Generally, provoked by some intense experience, near-death experience, or something similar, right? A very rock bottom experience generally provokes these miracles when people completely give up their hold on what they consider reality. Miracles happen, and that gives us a cue, right? How do we get to this point where we open ourselves up and let go of our grip on reality? Because this grip on reality is what keeps us stuck in the way that we perceive reality. Reality itself is not absolute, right? It's all individual. It's all based on how you've been programmed. You've been programmed through your education, but you've also been programmed through your experiences. How do we let that go? For most people, it's not easy. Some people are, I don't know if they're newer souls or if they're souls who have come from a different reality. They haven't had a lot of experience here on Earth where they've been indoctrinated into Earth-like ways of momentum and inertia. But, you know, people are coming to this planet to I believe, to be an example of how, you know, you can work much more miraculously. Because when we start seeing it, as I said earlier in this rant, as we start seeing it, we start to believe it, right? We copy it. Well, when we get examples of it, it's very hard to go first. It's very hard to be the way shower. Hopefully I'm helping. I know I just seem to be ranting and probably going around in circles. There is no quick fix, right? I don't believe there's a quick fix to evolving quickly. I think for many of us, it's always going to be difficult, but always possible. And the point is to be willing to hold intention that things can happen quickly without needing them to happen quickly because that's what we want, right? And not needing to prove that we're good by having it happen quickly, or that the process is good because it happened quickly. Ultimately, time doesn't really fucking matter to us as a spiritual being because we're infinite, right? We're immortal. There is no time. Time is a very human construct because we live on this planet in a 3D reality that spins, and we have night and day, and we have years, and we have a limited time generally that the physicality can exist for before it starts aging and showing signs of degradation, and then we can't do certain things that we used to be able to doing, and then we eventually, our body dies and we think that there's some ending has happened, and we're contracted around this. We have sayings on our planet that, you know, time is the most precious asset, and things like that. Time is precious. So we're very stressed about this idea of doing things quickly, of being efficient, of not wasting time, which doesn't really help us relax and enjoy and basically open up to miracles happening. If we want things to happen quickly, generally we're going to create limitations around them happening. And when we want anything to happen, we tend to get stressed around trying to make it happen in order to satisfy our want. There's nothing wrong with satisfying our wants, but when we start trying to, needing to even, then we create stress around things. Stress creates a contraction in the energetic field, and when the energetic field is contracted, nothing happens quickly or miraculously because everything is painful. There's more friction for things to move and change. So I think one of the keys to more miraculous, fast-paced change is completely relaxing or completely letting go. Completely, that's a fucking bullshit term if ever there was one. Nothing's complete, right? Nothing's absolute, but more completely or more effectively relaxing and letting go of what we want to have happen and how we want it. Let go of control, letting go of needing to measure, letting go of needing to verify, justify, whatever, ourselves. Just looking at the time, I'm pretty much done my half hour. Did that help, Jen Burns and anyone else listening to this? Ultimately, it's intent. And we're right here at this time. We're in the last 6 days. This time next week will be next year. The last 5 or 6 days of 2023, there becomes a lot of pressure into making next year better, whatever better means. A lot of people are getting, contracted around this idea of setting intention in some way for New Year's Eve, like it's a special moment in time that's that's, you know, powerful. And there is some power to New Year's Eve, because there are at least a few billion people who are intentionally hoping, wanting things to improve, and making intention to improve their life in some way on this time. And where there's a morphogenetic field, there is some value, there's some power behind that, there's some energy moving there. There's also a lot of limitations around that, and that morphogenetic field is somehow tainted with a lot of expectation and a lot of past disappointments and a lot of non-belief in there as well. It's a very mixed thing, this New Year's Eve thing. There's you know, pros and cons to it. So I think it's important to recognize that those of us who are reasonably energetically sensitive, empathically, pick up on all sorts of mixed messages as we do around Christmas as well, which is supposed to be a family time of joy and festivity, and yet many of us feel intense sadness, disappointment, even hatred and resentment at this time, because we're picking it up from the collective of all of the people who aren't having a joyful, happy time, all the people who are carrying resentments towards their family and various resistances, whether they're conscious of that or not. It definitely comes out at this time of year, which can make sensitive people feel incredibly uncomfortable and almost bipolar, right? You're feeling things that you're not choosing to feel. It's difficult. It's difficult. And then you feel more wrong about yourself, which then creates stress and contraction, which then drives you deeper into the negativity rather than the positivity of what you're choosing. And it's the same with this, you know, choosing for quick transformation. You have to be not stressed about it in order for yourself to have any chance at witnessing it for yourself, either in yourself or in others. Because as soon as you stress, you're going to slow down the rate at which anything can change. So overcoming stress, regulating our nervous system, choosing to maintain an empowered perspective of the world, and also a very deep, confident allowance that as things evolve, it's okay, right? It's okay that things are taking time. It's okay that you seem to have just slipped backwards. It's okay that you're not managing to manifest what you're intending to manifest in the click of your fingers, right? That's okay. You have to be in acceptance and allowance and just trust your intent. And the outcome is more important than how long it takes to get there. And the journey towards the outcome is living life. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to have experiences. We're not here to evolve. Evolution is just a opportunity to have experiences, right? If there was no evolution, then the experiences would keep being the same, right? And then we'd come here, we'd have an experience in human form, and there'd be no point coming back. There'd be no more value in having human experiences, right? Evolution gives us the mechanism by which each human experience has value, right? So evolution is not the important part of coming here as a human, right? We don't come here to evolve. Evolution is part of the system that we come here to have new experiences, expansive experiences, experiences that expand our knowledge base as a spiritual being, right? So evolution is a means to an end, not the end itself. We're not here to evolve and get off the planet. I know a lot of people say, that's it, this is my last life, I'm ascending. Naturally ascension happens. As we keep having more and more human experiences, naturally we get to a point where we've mastered the human experience, right? This is the spiritual evolution or ascension. That happens naturally, but that's not the reason you came here. You didn't come here to finish. You came here to gain value from the process. So it's important, I believe it's very important to keep remembering that. We're here for the experiences. We're not here to get it right. We're not here to finish. It's not a race. No one's timing you. No one's measuring how many lifetimes it took you to get through the human experience, right? Some souls stay here for a long time because they're fascinated. Some come here for a very short time because it doesn't meet their needs, right? We're all individuations of the same God, but we're all individuations. We all have different nuances, and that's appropriate. That diversity is what makes everything about creation special. Anyway, my friends, much love to you all. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I know some of you in Europe and stuff will be going to bed, but in 3.5 hours I will be back to do a light language session on instant teleseminars. I will record it on my little H1 and upload it in better quality. I know sometimes the phone lines aren't so great. Apologies for that, whether it's your phone line or my phone line or the computer system in between. But if you do find yourself listening live and find out, and it's not sounding great, then just hang up or whatever, get off and come back in half an hour when I've finished, and there'll be a much better recording available to you to listen in replay. I do love people being there live. I'm not trying to get everyone to listen to the recording, because I feel the energy of people who are listening live, and that gives me impetus and inspiration to what's coming through. Not so much me, but us when I'm talking this way. But yeah, it's there, and so that will be there full moon. So take care of yourselves. It is an intense time leading into this full moon. It is an intense time leading into the end of the year and New Year's Eve. It is an intense time with what's going on in the planet and various other astrological and energetic influences at this time of year and at this time of our experience here. So be an allowance, the fact that it's uncomfortable. Be okay with yourself. Choose to find acceptance. Choose to love yourself through this process, which is fundamentally healing. Choose to maintain intentions that basically things are getting more miraculous, right? Things are becoming less stuck, less entrained in this sort of top-down pyramidical control structure that we've lived under for thousands of years now. It's all falling apart. All sorts of opportunities are opening up. Be open to the opportunities, be curious, be open, but at the same time, be willing to find comfort in whatever sort of repetition you are using in your own life, right? And that might be the repetition of doing your meditations every day, or doing some yoga, or just when you eat your meals, or what you eat for your meal, whatever you're using to give yourself some structure. Be willing to appreciate that, and at the same time, be willing to go beyond structure in order to be curious and open to miraculous new unfoldings and evolutions occurring. This is the balance that we all need to find for ourselves, and it's a very dynamic process. There's no magical formula for that. There's nothing that will be consistent for any length of time, right? This process is changing. We're all changing our balance point all of the time, and that's appropriate. Choose not to feel too skittish in that, right? Don't make yourself wrong for being changeable. That's been made wrong on the planet as well. Changing your mind is somehow not a good thing, that you should honor what you've chosen in the past and see it through to the end. Not very evolutionary. Anyway, my friends, much love to you all. I'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.